Welcome to Unapologetically Badass, the podcast for women over 40 who are done dimming their light. I'm your host, Renee Carbone Fleming, coach, queen, and master of the midlife glow up. Solo chats, epic guests, no filter. Let's freaking go. Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome again to Unapologetically Badass. I am so thrilled to bring this next guest to you because so many of us women, raise your hand. I know you're raising it at home. If you are concerned with retirement, raise your hand if you're like, how do I pay for my kids' college tuition? Well, you know what? You are going to learn so much. And I really am excited to bring Monica here because the title of this is You're Not Broken, You're Becoming. Rewriting Your Money Story with Monica Kaufman. So Monica, CFP, I'm so thrilled to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, you know what? Like I said, financial literacy is something that most women need a better handle on in today's world, and especially my audience of women over 40. So,
okay, I just want to say something. According to the data from the financial industry, roughly 80% of Americans are financially illiterate. Okay, so women, you're not alone, and this has been going on for decades, so it's no one's fault. The question is, what are you going to do about it from today forward?
Exactly. And so what happened, the reason why I'm also very passionate about this is when I started my entrepreneurial journey, it was through a divorce. And my ex-husband, like many women can relate, was very financially successful and he handled all of that. So I didn't. And then when the rug gets pulled out from underneath you and you're like, this isn't my background.
Right.
And a lot of women are necessarily sometimes don't get into learning more about it because of the fear and uncertainty of it, and also the lack of means. They feel like they need to have hundreds of thousands of dollars as a base to invest. So can you talk about, the things that you see with your clients throughout your career?
I have seen this for a very long time. I mean, I remember years ago, 20 years ago, I was given a call by a friend and she asked me to meet with a mutual friend of ours. And she sort of let the cat out of the bag, sort of let things out and said, this person might be getting divorced. She had been raised by her father to be dependent upon the man.
Yep.
And she had been told to expect that whenever she was out with a man, he would automatically pay. Now, if you're in a business situation or a networking situation, that does not work. Okay. That does not mean just because you're in a room that the man is going to cover you. And she just had the hardest time wrapping her head around it. But ultimately, if we step back for just a second, the psychologists have really done some studies on this. And what they talk about is that you have an identity when it comes to every facet of your life. And money is no different. So that is something that is imprinted on you by age 6.
Yep.
And that is what is driving these decisions. Now, they've had these archetypes. And what you can do is I do a program where it's a free sprint where all you do is I give you a 5-minute video once a day. And we go through the different archetypes and then how it shows up in your life. So sometimes it shows up in under earning, not negotiating. Sometimes it shows up in fear of actually pursuing opportunities. Sometimes it shows up in overspending, failure to invest, failure to learn, trusting the wrong people. There's all sorts of ways that this can show up. And the reality is, if you don't control your money, someone else will control it for you. And someone else will therefore control you. If you are not the CEO of your financial life, you're not free.
Right.
Okay. You need to, just like you wouldn't let somebody else control you physically, and I hope you wouldn't allow somebody to control you emotionally or socially or your career. I do not want to see you let somebody else control your money. I want people to sort of walk away from this idea and this conversation, understanding money is nothing more than a set of tools.
Yeah.
If you've learned how to use other tools, you can learn how to use this tool.
Okay. That's brilliant. And that's the thing is learning where does somebody start? So if they're like, like I was back then,
Right.
okay, over a decade ago, going like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. I know how to balance my checkbook, but that's about it.
Okay, so what I want people to do when I take them through our program, we have a program that I started because I was sick and tired of seeing this, and I wanted to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. My industry does not encourage people within it to work with people who don't have money yet.
Mhm.
And the financial coaching world is spotty. They usually just focus on budget, they focus on cash flow, they don't focus on anything else. And a couple of things to think about. If you don't work with the psychology, if you don't work with correcting and updating that operating system you were given by age 6, no amount of literacy is going to work. So you have to deal with that.
Yeah.
That's why there are some people who are financial therapists who will do this. But what I created was this idea of let's do like a Noom for money. Do you know what Noom is for weight loss? Have you seen that?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So the idea, what have you ever used it?
No.
Okay. So what it is it takes positive psychology, which is a form of psychological therapy, but only not dealing with, like illness, but dealing with how you think.
Mhm.
And it works with that and your relationship with food, fitness, your body, and your health. And it combines that with education and goal setting to help get people get to a better place with their weight and with their health.
Mhm.
And it has a better long-term success rate than other diet programs because it deals with the emotional, psychological piece. And again, if you deal with my approach has been let's do the same thing with money. Let's deal with that and how you conceive of yourself and how you see yourself, your inner core beliefs
Yeah.
about yourself and money. Let's work with that and shift that. And the first thing we do is we build defenses so that if you get knocked down, you get back up a lot faster. So we're building resilience. And then I'm going to walk you through and teach the system. It's not advice. So while I'm a licensed financial advisor and I'm director of financial planning of a boutique firm, we're not telling you what to do when you're in this program. We're walking you through and we want you to take a break from listening to pitches. I don't
Yeah.
want you to listen to anybody. Okay. I want you to step back and learn the system and figure out as you learn the system and as you shift how you see yourself with money, then you can turn around and say, who do I want to be a part of my team? Because I'm the CEO and I'm hiring people and I need to be able to trust them. It's not a friendship, it's a business relationship. You are hiring people to be on your team.
Right.
So that's how I want people to look at this.
Mhm.
I My problem with a lot of the financial industry is that two things. One, it's not really built for the average person. So you have to learn it. Okay. And the second thing is, I've seen some good advice. I've seen good people in all firms, but I've also seen a lot of mediocrities and a lot of people who, quite frankly, need some work.
Mhm.
Advisors won't get better and stronger and more helpful until clients demand more and
Mhm.
demand better.
Yeah.
These people are in business, they want to make money.
Right.
They need to earn a spot at your table. They need to earn a seat at your table and in your life. Okay. So this is really just about me saying to people, if you want to be in control of your life, this is one of those things you need to do.
That's really smart, and I love that you bring it to the emotional connection to money because a lot of women have that fear or even feel like they're stuck. Like if you think you're broke, you're gonna stay broke.
Right.
And if
Well, that's
right?
the other thing.
If
That's the
you
other
think
thing.
you're
It's like,
gonna
okay, so
have abundance, you're going to have abundance.
well, and that's part of it. And it's one of those things where it's like, look, you know what? You didn't learn it because it wasn't taught to you.
Right.
Is that your fault? No.
Mhm.
Okay. The
Mhm.
other thing is you look at a lot of the material that's out there and you think, wow, can I learn this? What's worth it? There's a lot of good stuff. There's kernels of truth in a lot of different things, but then there's a lot of garbage. And you say to yourself, how do I figure this out? It
Yeah.
becomes overwhelming.
Right.
And my response is, look, you know what? One step at a time, one day at a time. You've been successful raising your kids. You've been successful being a parent. You've built a life. You may have worked in different fields. You've been successful working in those fields. Why would you think in this one area you can't do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That drives me crazy. It's like, stop. You're not a plant. You're not a tree. You are not stuck.
Yeah.
Let's get you up and get you moving.
Mhm.
So I've said that to more than one person. It's like, you are not a tree. You are
Yeah.
not a potted plant.
Yeah.
Move.
So that's a very good point. Well, what have you seen as far as the biggest pitfalls for your clients when they come to you?
A lot of times they come to me because something has gone wrong. Okay. Whether an advisor has been indescribably rude, they've had questions, they have not been listened to. And that's part of it. The other part of it is they look at this. I remember at the start of the pandemic, I had 42 appointments that first week. Second week, at the start of the shutdown order, I had 44 appointments. And there were people who were highly educated, highly compensated, who had not done anything with their money, their 401k, anything else in 20, 30 years. So
Yeah.
I had one woman who was, I'll never forget this. She had a disabled spouse and everything was riding on her, and she planned on retiring within a year, and she hadn't rebalanced her 401k. So she'd let it ride. So it started off at like 60% stocks and 40% bonds, but it had gravitated through the growth of the market to something like 97% stock. So when there was a dip in the market, there was a correction down, she saw, oh my God, I just lost 45% of my value. Okay, let's talk about this. And so it's one of those things where it's like, look, if you don't manage it, it's like your house. If you don't maintain it, what happens to it? You don't maintain your car, what happens to it?
Right.
Okay. You run the risk of it breaking down on the side of the road.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. You know, at some point you turn around and say, I may not like getting the oil change. I don't like going to the dealership. I'm at the top of the list of people who does not like going to the dealership.
I hear you.
Okay. But it's sort of like, and I don't like the way the men talk to me.
Yep.
However, I like having a car that is trustworthy on the road and that will get me from where I need to be from where I am to where I need to be.
Mhm.
So it's sort of like, okay. And that's the whole thing. The more you know, the easier it is for you to have confidence in what you're doing. And when you walk in there from a position of confidence, it's a heck of a lot harder to be ignored.
Right. Right.
These people work for you. It is a privilege to have you as a client.
Yep. Yep.
That's the biggest thing. And I look at this and I'm like, the biggest problem that people have is they forge emotional bonds with the advisor. And I appreciate that because I care very deeply about my people, but they don't understand what they're looking at. And so they get manipulated and they fall for posture. They fall for positioning, marketing and positioning.
That's
And
it.
that's what drives me crazy.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah, I see a lot of bad advice. I'll give you an example of something. When I look at somebody's money, every account has a goal, one goal. So your retirement account has one goal. Okay. You may have a cash account that's for emergencies. I hope you do.
Mhm.
That has one goal. Okay. That goal has a time horizon. So for emergencies, you could have an emergency today. You need to get to that money today.
Mhm.
That defines what is appropriate for the money to be invested in. You need something that you could get cash liquidity immediately for
Mhm.
an emergency fund. For retirement, you don't need it for that. So you have that time horizon, but the time horizon has two parts: time until the goal. So based on your age and when you want to retire, let's say we're talking to a 50-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Let's say she wants to retire at 67. So
Yeah.
that's 17 years, right? And then let's say she's got longevity in her family and she's healthy, thank God. So we need to plan until age 99. Why? Because the biggest risk in retirement is that you're going to run out of money.
Yes.
So again, it's one of those things where it's like the more you know and you look at this, that determines, plus your comfort zone with different things, what goes in the accounts.
Mhm.
So your retirement account shouldn't look like your emergency account.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. And that's the whole piece of this. It's like you need to understand what you're doing. And there is no rule of thumb. It's literally learn the system and make it work for you.
Yeah.
People get locked into, oh, this is my rule of thumb. Oh, I need 3 to 6 months. Well, maybe you need more than that. Maybe you need less than that. Let's talk about
Right.
it.
Right. Right. And what is it? But is there, without a rule of thumb, isn't there a rule of thumb with how much money you should have in retirement? I mean,
Okay.
obviously, a lot of that is, how long you're going to live, and that's always,
And the other thing is, do
side.
you know what your burn rate is? Do you know what it costs for you to live and do the things you want to do?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So
Hmm.
then the other question is like, when I look at retirement, people are like, oh, you need less in retirement. No, you don't.
You
Sometimes
can
you
end up
actually,
needing less.
no, sometimes you actually need more. Sometimes you need the same.
Wow.
So I'll give you an example. Once you go into, let's say you've done well,
Hmm.
okay, your Medicare is going to continue. It's going to be at a much higher rate, right? Okay. So you have to pay for your insurance. You have to pay for certain things along the way. And then there's the fact that once you don't have to go to work every day, or you choose not to, okay, what are you going to do with your time?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right. You're not going to sit on your hands and do nothing,
Right.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And then here's the other piece that people forget, your medical expenses go up.
Hmm.
And so the next thing that people have to deal with is the long-term care issue is a problem. You do not want, if you can avoid it, to be in a Medicaid facility for care. And so that's when things get difficult.
Hmm.
You really do have to think about that. So, and again, here's the other piece of it. How much are you taking out of the accounts at a time?
Hmm.
So, what I'd like to do with people is teach them how to use the system. The system is broad. There's so many different options. Have them tell me what they want, and then we start figuring out which pieces to use and how.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense. That
So
makes
yeah.
sense.
So
Yeah.
think about this. If you don't want to deplete the asset, you want to make sure that you can have enough money until the end of whatever. 4% is the maximum at this point. That's the only rule of thumb that you can take off of an account. Okay. And not have it continually go down. 4% is the maximum.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. It's a daunting thing. And do you work with both individuals as well as small businesses?
I do.
Have a
So yeah, I do. And one of the things I do with small businesses, and we're going to be doing, is we're going to be providing the actual academy, the financial training program, as a program that businesses can buy for their employees. And so, yeah, we're going to be teaming up. We have two different nonprofits that we're going to be teaming up with to provide that as well. So that becomes an opportunity for you to provide that financial piece, relieve the financial stress and anxiety of your employees, and actually make things a little bit easier. The return on the investment for businesses on that is significant. But we also do financial management for businesses if we can. So,
Oh, okay. That's great. That's great. And because a lot, like you said when you started this off, 80% of Americans are financially illiterate. So where does somebody start? Like, is that, if are they in doomsday, right? Because a lot of women that I talk to, they're like, well, it's too late for me.
no, you know what? It's never too late. If you're alive today, there's hope. There's a lot you can do. Okay. I have seen course corrections with people that have been significant. Okay. Um,
Outside of those that are in Congress or Senate.
don't mention that. That's ugly. But yes, okay. I have seen course corrections. Um, that's a bipartisan issue too, by the way. The
Oh,
corruption in
yeah.
that goes across all
Oh,
of them.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's if I did what they do, I would wind up in jail, but that's okay.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I have
Yeah.
a problem with that. I remember when I first looked at this when I was a kid and I did a little internship for a stockbroker,
Yeah.
and I must have been like 16, 17 years old. And they said, oh, politicians usually like to put their money into blind trust so that they don't have a problem with insider trading. Well, when did they remove that rule? A blind trust is an account that they don't look at how it's managed. They don't see it. They don't have any discretion over the decisions. Why can't we bring that back?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm amazed that you can get, a salary of $140,000 and then you're worth 10 million. And
Or 30 million in 6 years. I don't
yes.
know how that works.
Uh-huh.
Then there's another thing, like,
Yeah, it's like, please share with the rest of us, because that's
well,
how a lot of
yeah,
people feel. It's like we're not sitting at the table. How do
that's
we?
another problem that I have. It's sort of like, I don't want there to be two sets of rules, one for the politicians and one
Mhm,
for not. When
mhm.
it comes to healthcare, they were exempted from the Obamacare mandates. We were not.
Right. Right.
Okay. And so now we have a crisis in healthcare because they've messed with the system so much.
Yeah.
Insurance companies have done well. Okay. But the rest of us have not. And the costs have gone through the roof.
Right. Right, exactly. It's like we're on the losing side of the equation in most instances. And
Right.
that's where, as women who tend to be the homemaker, the caretaker, and a
Yep.
lot of women that are around our age group may have it sandwiched. They're in
Yep.
between the buns. So they've got aging parents and they have kids, whether or not the kids are, getting married or graduating college. But
Right.
we have all of those levels that we're managing in our lives and want to be
Mhm.
financially, responsible for ourselves and also our loved ones. But like I said, a lot of women, I think, they feel like it's too late. What do they do?
Well, here's a couple of things. We can start with putting up some financial defenses. First of all, learn the system. Second of all, understand the operating system you were given at age 6. It
Mhm.
was given to you by people who were I'm 99% confident were well intentioned, but that doesn't mean it serves you now. Okay?
Yeah.
So you don't have to stay stuck with that mentality. We work with people on this every day. Okay? It is doable. The second thing is what you have to do is set up some defenses so that you don't get yourself into trouble. So let's say you were married to one person, that person had a high income. As a spouse, you are entitled to that spousal benefit. If you've been married for a certain period of time, you're entitled to that. If you get married to somebody who had a lower income, you give up that spousal benefit on Social Security.
Yeah.
Okay, from the first spouse, and it's only connected to the second spouse or based on what you've earned. So
Mm-hmm.
let's start off with that. When I see people who've made that mistake, it's tragic.
Mm.
It's sort of let's talk about what you're doing and the consequences of this.
Yes.
You have to know those consequences. The next thing is you're going to have to protect your identity because one of the things that amazes me, I attended a seminar, webinar presented by the FBI on what goes on with identity theft and how senior women are targeted. And I was a little offended to find out that senior is defined at like age 50, but
I
they
know.
do all sorts of things. They assume if they think you're alone, you're single, that you're vulnerable. So understand that you are much more likely to be targeted. People pretending to be what they're not. Like at the time, they would say that they were pretending to be an officer in the military and they would send information. So very funny. My son wound up getting commissioned in the Army and I posted just a picture of the insignia. And then all of a sudden I started to get those friendship requests from people in Afghanistan and other places after we had pulled out, claiming to be members of the US military. Okay. And wanting to friend me.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. And then, there's all sorts of things. You really do have to start taking ownership. So we talk about identity understanding, credit understanding, protecting your social security number, protecting your assets, doing that. The next thing you really have to do, you have to have some legal docs in place because stuff does happen.
Mhm.
Okay. So who's your power of attorney? Who's your medical power of attorney? Do they have that document? Is it valid for where you live? Um, you have to have a will and a trust. Why do we want a trust? We want a trust makes these things private. So let's say you got divorced and your first husband did well and now you're building a business. Protect yourself from legal liability, okay? Protect those assets from a lawsuit. If you're engaged in business, make sure you have enough insurance. And also, here's something that drives me crazy. I'll give you an example of something. Client of mine came to me, he and his ex-wife had problems dealing with her daughter from a
Mhm.
previous marriage. And her daughter was a little bit out of control, partying and using drugs. And the mother had this weird idea that that was okay because she did the same things. Fine, okay. But her daughter got drunk and high one day at a party, handed the keys over to a friend of hers because she said, I can't drive, you'll drive. Well, that friend was more drunk and
Oh,
high than she was, got into a car accident, and sent 4 people to the hospital.
oh,
I have never sold property and casualty insurance in my life. So when I tell you you're underinsured, I have absolutely no skin in this game other than protecting you as a client.
yeah.
She had a she had an umbrella policy that he bought and gave her. And she said, this is a waste of money. I'm going to cancel it. An umbrella policy is $165, or roughly at the time, $165, $170 per additional million of coverage. She cut her automobile coverage down. Now, mind you, she had the money to more than pay for it, and he would have continued paying for it for her if she had asked. If she was in a position where she needed it, he would have paid for it for her. She cut it. She got rid of the umbrella. She cut down her overall coverage. Her daughter then gave the car over to somebody else who sent a family of 4 to the hospital for non-inconsequential injuries.
Wow.
Okay. She owned that car. It was her car, her minor child, not enough coverage. Okay. That puts her assets, depending on where they are and what type of accounts, at risk.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Okay. Then, make matters worse, month later or 2 months later, she gave her car to her daughter because she said, I don't want to drive her around. And her daughter went with a friend to a store where they sold these pens, okay, and they had THC in them. So why they were allowed to sell them in the state of Texas, I don't know. But the police stopped her, followed her from the store, stopped her, pulled her aside, and there was enough in the car that it was elevated to a felony.
Oh my God.
So that is a criminal issue, but that's going to have problems with the civil court, and the civil, it's going to compound. So my client got the phone call from his ex 2 months later saying, I need to find a criminal defense lawyer.
Oh.
And that was going to also affect the civil control.
Oh.
Okay, so let me give you an example of this. I have close friends that were from the dog park, and they own a tremendous number of rental properties. They also are successful realtors, okay? And this amazed me. They came at me and she asked me, do we need umbrella coverage? And I looked at her and I said, short answer, yes. Why aren't your properties? I said, and I looked at them, I said, are your properties in LLCs? And she said, no. I said, okay, that's problem number 1. And problem number 2 is you need umbrella coverage because I can guarantee you don't have enough automobile insurance. She said, why? I said, you get into a car accident, all of those properties are on the line. Okay. And you get into a car accident, if the damage is high enough, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
So she went home. Her husband didn't believe in umbrella, didn't believe in this type of coverage or looking at it this way. They had gone through another program and he said, we need to be penny wise on this. And she looked at him and said, Monica told us to do this. So they did it. 4 or 5 months later, she got into a car accident and it was her fault. She rear-ended somebody. The woman wound up with a concussion and soft tissue damage and sued her for $2 million.
Oh.
Okay. They had $500,000 coverage from the regular auto policy, and they had $3 million worth of coverage for the umbrella. So a couple of things happened. One, a better caliber lawyer showed up for the insurance company. Why? Okay. Because there was more money on the line.
Yeah.
And the lawyer looked at them and said, okay, tell me why you don't have.
Quick crown check, Queen. If you're vibing with this episode, you're exactly the type of badass I built my empire for. Whether you're building your fuck it fund, launching your brand, craving a midlife reinvention, or just want to look and feel like $1 million freaking bucks, I've got you. From merch that speaks your truth to digital tools, coaching, and yes, even collagen that slaps. I serve the sass, the strategy, and the sparkle to help women over 40 take up space and cash checks doing what they love. Head on over to reneecarbonefleming.com or tap the link in the show notes. Pick your flavor of badass and let's turn your midlife into your power era.
Have these properties in an LLC or a series LLC, which is a particular type of structure that is valid here in Texas. And they said, well, the guy said, well, I didn't think we needed it. We don't need this and we don't need a trust. And the lawyer repeated what I had told her about keeping things private, keeping things separate, creating distance and protecting what they had. And she looked at him and said, "That's what Monica said." And Bill said, "Oh." And the guy said, "Who's Monica?" The lawyer said, "Who's Monica?" And they told him about me. He's like, "Wait a second. You had somebody tell you what you needed to do. She didn't have any skin in the game. She's been doing this for a long time. And you didn't do it." And they said, "No." And he looked them in the eyes and said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, can I do it now?" And the lawyer said, "Not until we resolve the case. Because if they come after you and they get a judgment that's higher than your level of coverage, this will be unraveled. It will not protect you. You can't do it after the fact. You have to do it before."
Wow.
So there's that. Or like another example, there's a woman that I know that I trust a great deal. She had been very financially successful, and she'd been married twice. On the first marriage, she had 2 children. Second marriage, she did not have children, but she had set aside, she was the primary income earner. She had set aside money for her children's education. She had labeled them for the kids' educations. Guess what happened? When she got divorced, because it was just a general cash brokerage account, it didn't matter that it was set aside for the kids. He was entitled to 50% of it. If she had put it into a 529, okay, along the way, and had done that over the years, instead of just putting money into that account to be invested, it would have been outside of the marital estate. It's not in her personal estate. When you do a 529, it's separate. It would have been shielded.
Yep. Wow.
Okay. So different states run things differently, but what you need to do is actually sit down and think, okay, how do I make sure these assets are protected?
Yes.
How do I make sure that I'm protected? If my children's education matters, what's my risk here? It's not just in investing to make sure that there's enough, it's protecting myself on the backside. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Right.
So we walk people through the idea of how to do this, or I'll give you one more example if this isn't boring.
No, I love this. And like, I want women to hear that this is for anyone, whether you are married, you are single, you are an entrepreneur, you work full time, knowing where you are. And, quite honestly, if 50% of all marriages more end in divorce, knowing what, if you're in a marriage and you're like, we love each other, it's fantastic and it's wonderful. Then I pray that continues.
Right.
But I always say you need plan B.
Right.
You need to know what's going on in your world in order, like, if shit does hit the fan, what do you do? Are your kids protected? Like you said, do you have 529 set up? Do you have I don't know whether or not a trust is something like, so there's other things that women need to know no matter their circumstance in life.
2 real stories. Okay. There was a woman that I knew, I grew up with her. She was, okay. I met her and her daughter when she and my mother both signed up for Mommy and Me cooking classes. Okay. So when I was a kid, my mother described them as, let's get more flour on mom than in the bowl. Okay. That's really what happened. But anyway, so we met this person and her daughter in there. And it was interesting because she was kind of like a personal mentor to me. And she had a cousin who was an attorney and he did estate work. And his website said, make sure that you have your documents taken care of. Don't leave your family in a lurch. You never know what's going to happen. Well, he didn't have his documents taken care of. And on New Year's Eve, he wound up having a fatal heart attack. Okay. So he had rescued 2 pit bulls. He did pit bull rescue. And he had 2 senior dogs who were sick in his house. And they had to petition a judge to get a court order to allow a locksmith to get in the house. Okay. And it went on from there. And because he didn't have his documents in order, somebody came out of the woodwork and claimed to be long lost relatives and petitioned to get a part of the estate. Okay. So again, it's one of those things where you stand back and you say, do your stuff. He had no excuse. He could have done his own stuff, handed it off to the paralegal in his own office, got it signed and notarized, and it would have been fine.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So that's one story. And then there's another story. I was working with a client and you have to look at things a little bit more objectively. Okay. You think to yourself, this person's an entrepreneur. This person's spouse is an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
They want to set up retirement accounts because they've always saved for their retirement. Great. Okay. But they're like, oh, let's do a SEP. Because a SEP is a self-employed IRA, and you think it's easy, it's simple, it's a simple thing. Well, there's a formula you have to follow. And so you hit a lower threshold. Like let's say you make 200,000, you can't put the maximum in from your business.
Mhm.
You don't have as much control. But I
Mhm.
also look at that and I say, okay, 401ks have what are called ERISA protections on them to protect people from being sued. And after a certain dollar amount, there's a question about whether or not they can pierce the shield and get your personal money. So think about O.J. Simpson. All right. O.J. Simpson did a horrible thing
Mhm.
when he murdered those people, his ex-wife, and
Mhm.
absolutely horrible, but they couldn't touch his retirement money.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was in accounts that were protected under ERISA. So if you're the person and you have liability from your car, you have liability for different things, you have liability in your profession, why would you take the money out of 401k standing?
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you're starting your own business, open up your own if you don't have employees, open up your own self-employed 401k. It's a 401k and it has that ERISA wrapper around it. And
That
people look at me and they're like, "Oh, but it's a $500 fee or it's expensive to set up." It's paperwork.
right.
Okay. It
Yeah.
is simple. Is it worth $500? I've never charged for that, by the way. But is it worth $500 to make sure that you have that? I would argue and say, okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've never charged for it. I know other people who have. It doesn't matter. Okay. It's fine. But the other thing is like, and here's what I say to people, the calmest person in the room is the one with a system. Do you have a system that allows you to manage this? Do you have a system you understand that gives you the control to manage it? Let's build your dashboard. Okay. Because once you have a system, you can handle it. No matter what it is, you know where you're going with it.
Yeah. That's smart. And a lot of people don't have that.
But that's what we help people build.
I love that. You really work. I mean, you could definitely tell your passion for this, for financial literacy, and really, right, I could just see it, and just that sigh, that's like, you just wanna, like, jump out of the screen and go, "People, wake the fuck up, like, we need to fix this, and it's not too late, and we can fix it now," right?
Well, it's always a question of, yes, that's part of it. I really bitterly, okay, want to own my own freedom. I'm very aware, like quitting day was last Friday. Okay. I still went to the gym. I still went to the gym on Sunday. I went to the gym this morning. Okay. I am not quitting on me when it comes to fitness. I'm not quitting on me when it comes to my emotional health. I'm not quitting
Yeah.
on me when it comes to my career. I'm not quitting on me. I matter to me. I've got this. I'm not going to catastrophize. I'm going to look through the other perspective and say, what if things go right?
Mhm.
Okay. And I don't want anybody to quit on them just because, like look, fear, what is it? False evidence appearing real.
Wow. Yep.
Okay. Literally, the way you handle anxiety, the way I handle anxiety is by doing the work and stepping forward.
Mhm.
If I can take the fear away and make this understandable, I used to train new financial advisors. And one of the things that drove me bat shit crazy, was when people would use jargon.
Mhm.
If I have to use jargon, I don't own it. So
Yeah.
like what's a stock? It's an ownership piece of a company. That's all it is. It's a tiny little piece of ownership of a company. That's all it is. What's a bond? It's an IOU. It's all of this is understandable. I've seen people, God help me, dumb as a box of rocks, pass these exams. It's like you can do this. I promise you. You are way smarter than some of the people I have met in my industry. You can do this. I promise.
So how do people know who's the right person for them?
Okay, so once you get to the point where you know yourself,
Yeah.
and you start to trust yourself. So what's confidence? How would you define confidence?
How
Seriously, how
would
would
I
you
define
define
it?
it?
Oh,
Yeah.
confidence is showing up even when you don't want to.
Okay. That's a man. I would say that's a descriptor of what happens when you have it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And I love that
I,
because
I believe it, as you can tell. I'm like, I own it. But it didn't always happen. It didn't always, it wasn't always there.
right. But here's the thing. So what confidence is the understanding that you know enough and you have enough sound judgment and skill that you can make a decision. And if it's right or if it's wrong, you're still going to be okay. You'll still recover.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Owning
And
it.
it's proof that your subconscious will accept. Your mind is a very powerful prediction engine, and it lives off of the script you feed it. And its entire purpose is to protect the organism and keep us alive. So, what you have to do is give it enough information that you can handle this. So, your confidence grows as you feed it proof and it sees you doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so real confidence, not bravado, not whatever, allows you to show up. You go, okay, I'm going to be in a room and I'm going to see something new,
Mm-hmm.
but no matter what happens, I'll be able to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And let's say it's not the greatest decision. It's still going to be okay because no matter what, I can bounce right back up. I built resilience into
Yeah.
my system.
Yeah.
Okay. So once you do that, you approach hiring somebody on your team the way you would approach hiring somebody else in any other area of your life. Okay. You start listening to your system and you go, you know what, this person may not be the right one for me. Okay. You ask questions and you say, and if you don't get answers, you get positioning or something that doesn't make sense, or you get an attitude
Mm-hmm.
that you're not okay with.
Mm-hmm.
You either call it out or you say, you know what, maybe you don't deserve to be on my team.
Right.
I've
Right.
heard people say, well, do I have enough money to get hired? I'm like looking at them going, okay, somebody has to fight for the right to work with you. Now, maybe you don't have enough money to get hired. That doesn't mean you don't have enough money to get started.
There you go. There you go. Yep.
So, yeah, it's a question of just start.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And because I love how you work with your clients and creating this framework and helping them understand what happened, where they are, where their mindset
Right.
is with money, and then moving them forward. So, how do people connect with you? Where does it?
So there's my email, which I will give you. It's mkaufman@harmonyam.com. But I am running a sprint, and the sprint is free. The sprint is all about literally, it's 5 minutes a day. First thing in the morning, you get one little piece of paper sent to your email, and you get a 5-minute video sent to your phone. That's it.
Mhm.
Okay. I want it to fit into your life, not take over your life, because if it takes over your life, you won't do it.
Right. Mhm.
Okay. But at the end of that, what you get is an understanding of where your mindset may be causing problems. And there's kernels of truth in each one, but where it manifests and where it goes too far is where you have issues. So, and there's no one that just has any one set. So it's okay to have different pieces from different ones. What I want people to do is just take that very easily. Then we do a very small workshop where it's literally what is the antidote to this so that you know where you're going.
Yeah.
And then after that, if they want to work with us in the program, they can go into the program. So the website for the Wealth Academy is being redone,
Mhm.
but I will give you a link for the sprint where they can actually start getting moving. And the program is, again, it's 5 minutes a day.
Yeah.
5 minutes a day, 5 days a week. There are some tasks. Everything is tied to an action, so it reinforces
Okay,
and it
good.
fits in.
Okay, good. We'll put that in the show notes for everyone that wants to connect. And where do they find you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. I am going to put something up for the Academy on Facebook that needs to get done this week. And then I have, they'll be able to see the website as it gets fixed. But yeah, this has been a journey of mine in terms of delivering,
Yeah.
and I'm used to doing it one-on-one. I do offer, if people are interested and feel that they need extra help, if they're going through transition or they're going through divorce or they're going through whatever the transition point is and they really want a one-on-one experience, I can do that for a limited number of people. It's a hybrid situation. and that's a different contract. But yeah, they can do that. They can find me through the Harmony Asset Management website, www.harmonyam.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing such incredible wealth of knowledge. And I really appreciate it because this is something that I'm really passionate about, having struggled post.
Well, how did you recover? And thank you for having me. I'm sorry I didn't share more about how I got started with this.
I know. That's okay. That's okay. No, this was fantastic. Well, and that's the thing. I had to, it was a learned thing. And, I grew up not having money and
Right.
a family that was broke and stayed broke and
Mhm.
complained that they were broke. And they were
Okay.
still broke. And they were still broke. So I had to fight that all of my life. And I always said, that's not going to be me. So,
It's funny. It's like I remember I was on a plane recently and I turned to this woman, we were talking, and she asked me about my philosophy. I said, look, for a lot of us, the 6-year-old has been in charge of how we handle money.
mhm,
And the 6-year-old you is not the one that's in charge in any other area of your life, is it? And they were like, no, actually, it's not. I'm like, well, sometimes you need to turn to the 6-year-old and say, I need you to sit down. The adult me that handles every other area is going to start handling this.
yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, you just described me, because she was a lot like you
Mhm,
and like me. My parents got divorced and things became difficult. But what she did was she made a promise to herself, no matter what happened, she was always going to make enough money to be able to buy whatever she wanted.
mhm,
And she had to make a course correction so that she actually started serving her future you, her, instead of her today her,
yeah.
so that she wouldn't be in that position. That's part of what we do with the psychology piece.
Mhm,
I want you to fall in love with you, future you,
mhm,
and I want you to take care of future you, and I want you to envision exactly what you want. And
yeah.
then we talk about how to make sure you take care of future you as well. You matter, not just you today, but future you as well.
Absolutely. That's why I get so passionate about like coaching women for multiple streams of income and building a personal
Mhm.
brand, because I don't want women to feel stuck. And money has a lot to do with that. So you need options in life. And this aspect is what happens like now, whether or not you have money. And a lot
Exactly.
of
But
people forget that piece.
that's the thing that drives me crazy. It's like, look, you know what? Don't ever depend on one stream of
Right.
anything.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. It's like, don't ever just have,
Mm-mm.
yeah. And it's,
I
yeah.
know. We could talk hours. This is like so everyone, please go follow Monica, connect with her. You're definitely going to be, clearly you can tell with her heart that you will be taken care of and on the right track. So we don't promise anything. I am not promising any results. You can't come back after and say you told me I was going to get X return on my investment. That ain't
No.
happening. But
And
it's an
that's another thing. Time out. If somebody makes a promise like that,
Mhm.
back out of the room.
Yep.
Okay.
Run.
I can't promise you an end result. What I can promise you are tools. What I can promise you is that you'll understand the tools and you'll understand a little bit more about yourself.
Yep.
But and here's the thing too, I will give 100%, but I'm only 50% of the equation. I can't control how much you give and do for yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. So I'm going to give 100%, but I need you to at least give 80% for there to be any lasting change.
Yep. Yep.
It's on you, but you can do it. And I know you can, because I've seen others with, and I'm going to say this, probably with either your skill level or a heck of a lot less, do it. One last story, and I'll just give this to you. When I was with Merrill Lynch at the time, but I'd been there for about a year, and 2 referrals came in at the exact same time. One was a physician who had been extraordinarily highly compensated, but he'd had a stroke. And the other one had been a blue collar couple.
Mhm.
Okay. He owned some businesses that he had to sell when his daughter was born, and she had some profound disabilities. And the wife had worked as a paralegal. Okay. And it was amazing, because if I told you where they lived, and if I told you their professions and education, who would you think was in financial distress and who would you think was successful?
Think the person with a disabled child would be in distress.
They retired involuntarily in their 50s, and they were absolutely beautifully set up. They had more than they needed.
Wow.
Okay. The other one, if they had not had a disability insurance policy to protect them and pay for him, there would have been a very serious problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's, yeah, you do have to understand the material,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not necessarily what you think it is. Anybody can do this.
Yep.
I have seen regular people make the decision to do it and get it done and do it beautifully. And I've seen other people not. And also, the other thing is, I have seen people make the course correction. First time I saw it again was when I'd been in the industry for about a year. Somebody came in, had been referred to another advisor, but I was able to sit in on this. And they made a decision in their 50s when their kids graduated. They were in debt up to their eyeballs. She went back to work. They lived off one income. They cut back on their expenditures. They saved the other one. They invested. And when they retired 12 years later, they were more than okay. It is absolutely possible to do this, but you got to take ownership and say, what do I want? Where am I?
Yeah.
It's going to be painful to look at it sometimes, but
Yeah.
then you say, I'm not stuck. I can do this. I can handle this. I'm not going to catastrophize. I can get this done. I'm getting it done.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you partner with your clients, and it's definitely a relationship. So thank you for sharing. Really appreciate it. Everyone, again, go connect with Monica on LinkedIn. Go check her out. And I just appreciate your time. So thank you everyone for watching, and stay tuned for the next Unapologetically Badass.
Thank you. Take care. Be badass, guys.
Bye, y'all. Well, that's a wrap for today, Queen. But don't just walk away inspired, walk away activated. If this episode lit a fire under your fabulous ass, hit that follow button, leave a review, and share it with your fiercest ride or die. Your support helps this podcast reach even more women who are ready to reclaim their power. And hey, if you're ready to look, feel, and earn like $1 million freaking bucks, I've got an entire badass empire waiting for you. From confidence boosting merch to brand strategy, coaching, collagen content, and everything in between, head on over to reneecarbonefleming.com or tap the link in the show notes. Pick your flavor of badass and let's turn midlife into your power era. Stay bold, stay unapologetic, and wear the damn crown.